Hi, this is Cindy
Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and it's looking like we have about a 30-second delay. So it'll be a moment before I see comments or us up on the screen. But if you could give us a verification that you can hear us, that would be awesome. So far in the room, I see Incense Shop. Hello, hello, Linda Taylor and Curie Hyatt. Hello, everybody. I think there's probably a few more in the room waiting. So, and we've had an extremely busy day. It's been like that all month.
Yep.
For at least a month, 2 months. We're running up doing projects to the last minute before I had to go do the show, and you were actually doing projects still.
Still trying to finish.
Yes. Thanks for the verification. I think we have sound. Yes, we do still have a project that we're trying to finish. Hi, Mama T. Um, and I will apologize. 2 weeks in a row, I don't have a Forge Food feature. It's been a little busy. We'll get back to it next week on that, but we still have our live show and plenty of things to go over and kind of get you updated on what's going on because we also need to get caught up on videos. Lots of projects, and they're going to be probably bigger videos. I'll probably do short snip videos and then maybe a more detailed one for people who want more detail later on some of these. And your mom's here. Yes, you had pie for Thanksgiving.
We didn't have any pie for Thanksgiving.
We left before getting pie. No, I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. We actually brought pudding with us over to my sister's house, and then left her with the dogs over at my sister's house while we went to the other sister's house for Thanksgiving, where everybody was going to go eat. So Puddin got a car ride and got to meet some of the family. And she did really well, actually.
She looks like she has snow on her nose in that picture.
She kind of does.
She doesn't, but
she doesn't have snow on her nose.
She does have gray.
She does have some gray fur there. And Maniac Grammy's Homestead, cool, is here. So yeah, so we've had a busy week. I'm sure most people have had a busy time with family. We also had family come back with us in Green Gables. Hello, hello. We did have family come back with us too. My nephew Taylor came back. We've been promising him a visit, but it's just been so crazy busy that we haven't figured it out. And then we're like, well, let's just bring him back with us from Thanksgiving. So he came back and hung out with us on Friday and helped with a lot of projects, including this one, which we were shelling beans, some dry beans, and Puddin's being a little Wizard of Oz in the background there. Puddin was a little scared of Taylor, just kind of gave him space and rode with him in the back seat of the car.
Yep. Well, he had no choice. They both had no choice.
Yeah, they both had no choice on that, but
we didn't bring the bigger car because
we didn't plan that.
That wasn't a planned return.
No, but Puddin curled up on 2/3 of the seat, and Taylor had his booster seat on the other half of the back seat of the car, and pet Puddin most of the way back, I think. And she dealt with it, but
it was dark. She didn't know what was going on. She forgot.
I don't think she forgot. I just don't think she had anywhere to go to hide from him. But once we got back here, she was a little nervous about him because he was in her house instead of the other way around. Hey guys, Tina's still at work. Oh boy. Try to see if I missed anyone. And Valerie D, hello. Yes.
So Mama T's been a while since they were here, right? And
yeah.
Maniac Granny, is that brand new
to our show?
Yeah.
Are you new to our live show? If you're new to our live show, just
if you're new, let us know where you're from, but I'm gonna guess you're from Maine.
Yeah. Maniac. Play on words. And I wonder how much snow they have in Maine because they got hit hard with the last one, I think.
Yeah, the one that hit New York.
Yeah, yep. So we used to live in New York, but of course we're in Southwest Michigan now, and we're supposed to get hit tonight.
Our first real snow for the season. We've had up at 2-ish inches at one point, and a few dustings, but nothing. I haven't plowed. I set the plow up today. It's on the truck.
Yeah.
Everything looks good, so I'm anticipating plowing tomorrow morning. Probably plowing
2 to 6 inches.
Probably plowing one more time after that. It's not supposed to stop till 1, so we'll see. I might end up plowing twice tomorrow.
It's supposed to start raining like in the next hour. So this is not going to be a nice snow. It's going to
be. I don't care. I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going. I have to work tomorrow. Yeah. We're supposed to get rain, and then freeze, and then get about maybe up to 6 or so inches of snow on top of that.
I haven't seen anybody salting roads to try and prevent ice underneath, but maybe they think it's going to stay slushy underneath. And
I don't know.
I don't know.
That could get bad. So Diana, hello, welcome. So we're going through a few things this week. For those of you guys that just joined in, I don't actually have a Forge Food feature this week, although we could go over kind of the stuff that you can find in this area, in the northern area of the U.S. We could do some, kind of go through some of the things you can find right now, even though it's not the growing season. Sabine, hello. Sabine Cody. We did get one video out, you guys. And did I get my... I didn't get my picture changed. But we did get the dressing up the poached pears video out this week. So you could check that out.
Didn't you have a picture of the new one? I thought you had it. Maybe it was in the...
I think it was in the lineup. I forgot to replace the picture here. I was doing this so fast. I could replace this picture actually we were going over that. We also have a few videos coming. We did a mac and cheese video for the
so we did. So the poached pear was done last week. End of last week. That was a collaboration with Two Family Homestead.
Yeah.
And then we have a part 2 that took a couple days to come up after that. So the first was a basic poached pear. The second one is a quick step through of some components to dress it up. Cindy's getting the picture set right now.
Yeah.
And we'll get that on the screen and talk about it, I guess. So that's poached pear, and we dressed it up restaurant style. Did a reduction of the spiced wine liquid, reduced that down to a little bit more of a syrup. Made a foam with that. I made some Sabione or Zabaglione, depending on what country, which is...
whether you're French or Italian.
Yep, which is a base to one type of mousse. It's an egg and a little bit of white wine or liquor, usually, and sugar. So we made a little quick mousse or a little pillow with that. I made a quick nut brittle with a caramel nut brittle. We put a little shave of chocolate over it. Oh, and we have a pumpkin cookie cut out. I didn't end up making that. That was a throw together. So it was sort of how in the restaurant world do we create the different components to make something fancy, how it is much fancier, but not necessarily a whole lot more work than it looks like. Put it in a nice bowl, of course, and a little bit of setup on the presentation. We didn't do anything fancy on slicing it. That's the other thing, or stuffing it. But showing those different components. And we also basically worked with things that were laying around the house. I didn't... I bought a little bit of cream because I did add a little whipped cream into the Sabione, which is the next step to making it into a little more moussey. But everything else was laying around the house. So that's a follow-up video beyond the collaboration, and that kind of going from homestead to what I do professionally of setting up a restaurant quality plate.
Which is kind of fun, especially if you're doing it maybe on a little smaller scale. You have fewer family members around or whatnot, and you want to dress
a fancy dinner for a few people.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's a doable. I didn't go through the steps of making each item, so you're going to have to look. I think I talked through some of the components. You may have to look up a recipe for the Sabione. I didn't really talk about how you get a foam or a gel very much.
You talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, but so there's a few ways to do that. So kind of whipped all that off.
Yeah. So. It's more description and putting them together. But we do have a full description of how to make a poached pear on the first video.
Yeah, we did full detail, step-by-step detail on the poached pear, which is more people are going to do that than go to.
You could just put ice cream, and you could easily reduce that wine sauce and put ice cream and just drizzle it with.
Yeah, you can reduce it all the way down to a syrup. Be careful not to burn it. It's like maple. It goes from too loose and wet to burned in a moment. Yeah, so you really got to watch it at the end.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun one. We do have a lot more videos coming. I think I have a list of like 5 videos that I need to be working on, but
Um,
part of those are continuation projects
the
too.
macaroni and cheese video was
Yep,
a throw together.
that's coming out this week.
Okay, so that's coming up. So there was a question yesterday about making macaroni and cheese.
Hmm.
We said we thought about doing
Or
something
last week.
last week.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it may have been Tina or who was it? Somebody, and we started to talk about that
The magic is
the
Velveeta.
magic is using Velveeta. I think a lot of people agree with that. As far as emulsifying tough cheeses that are tough to melt or get stringy and greasy and lumpy, having a high enough fat content so that you can get those harder cheeses to come back in,
Yep.
or emulsified or mixed together cheese. So Velveeta is perfect. So we decided to do a full video on that.
Hmm.
Um, so you can look for that this week.
I think I'll actually
And
get 2 videos on that because we had so many bloopers going on with the pets during that video that I'll have the video and I'll have a bloopers video. So the official one, which will technically make for the website for West Michigan Pasta, but I'll have it on Part-Time Permies here. It'll just be a link on the website to the Part-Time Permies video. So you guys will definitely get that as well. So I might do those 2 this week, but we have a lot of other things going on. We are Oh, what else did we do? Oh, we put the chickens in the garden this week. That was another thing
that
we
was
did.
over a week ago.
That was a little over a week ago, but I don't think we even talked about it last week. So they've
Yeah.
been in the garden for about, I guess, a week and a half.
Yep.
Um, with the snow today, I'm really playing it by ear because if it's only an inch or two, then I'll leave them in the garden for another week. But if it's really 4 to 6 inches that we end up getting or more, then either I'll have to shovel them paths because they don't like walking in the snow, or I'll have to move them into the winter coop. Um, I'll probably move the chicks into the winter coop tomorrow morning before daylight is my goal, but I'm not sure how many things I could get done in 24 hours.
So we had some comments about second choice cheese for mac and cheese.
Yeah,
Yeah, so actually I use the Velveeta as a base.
base.
If you want to dry, and then you can use your nicer cheeses and add that in to give it more nuances. Um,
Hi, white picket fence.
and we start out with a bechamel, so
Yeah.
flour, roux, milk. If you don't want to use Velveeta at all, you would want to go with like a medium cheddar or an American cheese, something that's not too hard, because the harder it gets, the more salty and harder it starts
Hi, Teresa.
squeezing the protein,
Yeah.
and the harder, and so you get those granules or grana from like Parmesan cheese. So those are really hard to ever get out and to melt out. And then if you use really, like a hard or an aged cheddar, a lot of the oils become greasy, and so it'll
Break.
break. Part of the way to get around that is using heavy cream, because heavy cream is much higher fat than any of your other products, and so you need that heavy fat to help bring it all back together. But a medium block cheddar, or an American cheese, um, slices work pretty well as a base. And then once you have that in, you can kind of, you can add in whatever you want.
Yeah.
Some things will get pretty stringy, which can be good on a baked mac and cheese. We didn't go ahead and go all the way through a baked mac and cheese on this one. So um, softer Swisses can get quite stringy, and yeah, and you can put in, you could put in bries and other things, but they're kind of over the top.
Mm.
So yeah, when we talked about the Velveeta, I only use Velveeta for macaroni and
The
cheese.
only thing.
So Velveeta is a cheese base that is a number of cheeses blended together. It's a little lower fat. It has some dehydrated powdered milk in it, or as part of the base, which helps bring the fat down. It does have a little modified food starch, which is used as an emulsifier.
Mm.
So it's whipped and set up with the modified food starch to keep everything in place, which is why it becomes such a good binder. So it is a real cheese product. It's not a hard set cheese. Um, it's not like, because some people blend a lot of oils and stuff in, on the
Mm.
really really cheap stuff. So yeah, you don't have to use it, but watch for a kind of a softer, medium soft cheese.
You need something that melts well.
Yeah, that melts really well, and that's the direction
Yeah.
we go. In fact, an American slice or single really isn't much different than Velveeta. It
Yeah.
uses a lot of powdered milk, low fat powdered milk. It's a low fat cheese. It's got a high amount of water. Depending on the quality of it, it may have an emulsifier. It may not. It's brought into it's brought together and then it's set as it cools. So it's barely a step away from what Velveeta is. Velveeta is just formulated softer. So they're not my go-to cheese for anything else. We have a couple really nice cheeses sitting
Yep.
in the fridge right now.
Yeah, we do.
That I would only put in there if there are little bits laying around
Yeah.
that we're about ready to finish up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So your mom says she always uses 2% Velveeta. It's actually better, in her opinion, than the full fat version.
yeah. Well, I mean the 2%'s good. So what
Yeah,
they do is they
healthier.
replace more. They use more non-fat milk powder in their formula and less whole milk
Mm.
product, which is how they get it. So it does bring the fat content down. So you're actually a high protein and a relatively low
So if you're watching the fat,
fat for a dairy product. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you bring the fat down, um, this has a lot of protein, but it isn't always as long term satisfying. So sometimes having a richer fat item, like in,
fills you more.
is more filling. So drinking non-fat milk is um, mostly sugar and carb based,
Yeah.
and the protein doesn't change in it between a non-fat and a higher fat. When you have a higher fat, it slows down digestion, and it changes the digestion pattern, so it can actually be um, better for some people to have a higher fat or milk or cheese. It just depends on
If you're going
what you're
for,
doing.
yeah, low fat versus low sugar.
Yeah, trying to stave off
Yeah.
hunger versus so
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about when we start talking about low fat milk in like schools and kids going to low 2%, which is considered low fat, and then going to no fat and 1%, that was healthier because of the sugar content specifically in milk for as a consumption as a beverage. It's highly debatable whether that was a good move. Actually, though, whole milk, which is only 4% fat, a cow usually is closer to 8%.
Mhm.
They've already skimmed off half the fat. But that whole milk might actually be a better item, a better balanced item for drinking. So
Yeah.
it's debatable, but I think there's been some
It's
changes of
back and forth.
opinions. The government food pyramids are always running behind, so they're not quite there yet. But anyways, it's an interesting topic to look at and look at how over time our diet trends and our recommendations through um, dietitians or even government stuff has actually really swayed back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
So
So yeah. Oh, by the way, this one's for your mom. Um, one more pudding picture. She is hanging out with me doing laundry, so she's starting to become my shadow. Although she's not helping much with the laundry as I was trying to fold it. She jumped on the bed as I was doing that. So, but just wanted to give update on her. She is doing much better. Um, she is she likes Deb a lot.
she did.
She actually greeted
I know that was
Deb when
weird.
she picked up
She'd
Taylor.
only met
So
him briefly,
yeah,
for an hour, a couple hours.
yeah. So yeah, no, only for a couple hours we were hanging out. She hung out. She did a little better with adults. She stayed away from the kids, but she hung out with adults, and Karen pet her when she was
Yeah,
over
the kids are
there.
too energetic, and there's some other younger puppies that were too energetic.
One was too energetic. The other is a deafblind puppy who is not so energetic,
No,
but
he was nice.
it was very sweet.
He goes in circles.
He does go in circles because he
He
sniffs
has
in
to find.
circles.
He's got to find his where he's at. So he goes in a lot of
Yeah.
circles.
So yeah, so that
He
was
doesn't
cute.
run into much. He just goes
No,
in
he doesn't.
circles.
Um, but he did get under Jello's feet once, but because he's little. Um, but that was the only thing that set her a little nervous of him was because
Yeah.
she tripped on him. But
The Australian Shepherd was too bouncy.
too much energy for her. She wanted to. She didn't know how to play with her. I didn't. I did get some video. I haven't. That's another video I need to make now. Um, but so I will pull that together too. But I did get video of her meeting that part of the family and those dogs. But the Australian Shepherd was trying to chase her everywhere and herd her and get her in her face, and she almost got annoyed with it a little bit. But she didn't really know what to do on the game of chase, which was kind of interesting because I think she would play it. It's just it was too much too fast and a dog she didn't know. So um, we did have some other things going on today. Lots of things going on. Trying to prep before the snow comes in. Um, I was trying to get the chickens taken care of. They're still out in summer coops, and babies are still in mobile tractor. So I was trying to get some of these the winter coops taken care of. But that door on that first chicken coop, screws fell out of the hinges, and so we had an extra project. We would be done with our greenhouse tonight, which was our other project, our main project, if that door didn't break on me. So we had to fix that door, which is fixed
Well,
now.
it's been breaking for months or years.
Yeah, it's slowly. We had to replace the bottom piece of it. It was rotting away, and that's probably why the screws fell out. Well, that wasn't on the bottom piece though, so I don't know. It was just getting stripped and stuff. So we had to fix that door. Didn't get a video on that because we're trying to get things done as fast as possible. Uh, I'll move the babies into that coop tomorrow morning, and I was going to do that tonight, but we're out of time because the other project I already mentioned was the greenhouse, which this was part of the way through today. We put all those vertical pieces, all those uh, basically conduit pieces up today. And we got the conduit done. We have not put the plastic on it yet. So we might have to do that.
Tuna noodle with Velveeta.
What was that?
Tuna noodle with Velveeta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta put the cream of chicken or mushroom cream of mushroom soup base in there too.
Yeah.
That's another nicely engineered food. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a moderately
You can always
engineered product.
you can always make your own cream of mushroom soup.
You can, and it's really good. I've made lots of mushroom soup and really like it. It's not that hard. Part of it is you got to have a lot of mushrooms around, and
Yeah.
then you got to store it. But yeah, it's not that hard to make.
Yeah.
It's never going to be as cheap as buying it because they use some modified food starch and fairly low dairy, and I make a veloute with milk, and then I finish with heavy cream, restaurant style. So it's gonna be richer. But yeah,
Yeah.
you could. I've never made enough in a home setting where I would store it for something.
Probably could. I mean, you could
You
probably make
could.
a big batch and then can it.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
But
We,
I find it easier the small amount that I use,
yeah.
which isn't very much right now, to buy a can or two.
Yeah. White picket fence. I
Oh yeah, classic cream of chicken, cream of mushroom,
had
and
cream of chicken.
peas.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yep, there you go. That's
Cream of sweet peas also.
yep,
Yep.
sounds like the nationally accepted recipe.
Yeah. I love. Yeah. That is very good. But and I'm getting pop-up notifications on my computer. There we go. So
Yeah, so the
we can go through
greenhouse is ready. We might get some
plastic on.
plastic over it quickly, at least over the front of it tonight,
Yeah.
to let the snow slide off of it. Um, the door needed a little additional work today. We got all those things figured out. I don't have the hangers on the door and the latch on the door, so it's bungee cord, so it doesn't, and the
So it
glass is
doesn't
out of
swing.
it. Um,
Yeah.
I was hoping to have the latch on um, before tonight, but I don't. I'm not gonna get that, but we might just roughly lay our sheets of plastic
Over this front area
over
here.
the front just to keep
Yeah.
any heavy snow off, and then we'll have room to work. So the last parts on that are finishing. Some of the upper braces are still floating a little bit, and then we have one more support to put on the far side of the door. We'll have a full video showing you details, but we basically
Yeah.
put a storm door with a metal 2x4 frame, which is a little harder to construct than it seems like it should be, but it's pretty solid. It actually works really well,
Yeah.
and that way it costs very slightly more than using wood. But the nice thing is we don't have to worry about
Weathering.
rotting and warping wood and things moving around. So we did it all with, and I haven't worked a lot with the metal 2x4s, but they were pretty easy to work with. And then we used a couple pieces of polystyrene finishing 1x4s on the face for the same reason that so we don't have any wood involved in it.
Hey, pretty girl.
And the idea of this is not only a greenhouse, but it is pretty easily adjustable or removable. So that if we don't like the conformation at some point, or we feel like we want to take it down in the summer,
Adjust it, whatever.
we need to take it off completely.
We can do that.
We can do that. We did minimal attachments and effects to the house, and so we feel like it could be totally removed and taken down if we felt like it was a nuisance. But we think it's going to probably stay there long term and probably mostly covered. We might vent it open in the summer or
Yeah, we
something.
probably have to vent it in the summers, but basically what we're planning on doing on each of these conduit poles is we just have those greenhouse clips. You just put the plastic on them and clip it to them with the greenhouse clips that are made for that size conduit. Some people use plastic. We like to use the metal conduit just because the plastic ones
Yeah, I
with the
don't like
hot,
the PVC with the wind in the winter.
yeah, with the hot and cold and back and forth so much here and the freezing temperatures, it eventually does
We're
start
like
breaking
six
down.
or 7 years in on our clips even.
Yeah, that's
A few
true.
of them have broken, but considering the amount of UV and heat, and we keep them on in the winter
Yeah.
on our, so even the plastic clips, they're Johnny Seed clips.
Hmm.
They've gone down in price. Johnny Seed was cheaper than other people I saw with similar clips, which surprises me because usually Johnny's just a little bit more. But then yeah, we do the electrical conduit. Um, we did 3/4 inch on this. You can do 1/2 inch, but it's awfully rigid. I think it could withstand. I don't know if it could withstand 100-mile-an-hour winds, but I think it would withstand 75-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
And I don't
Which
think
is good. We sometimes do get 75
and
mile an hour.
snowpack. It's a little sheltered there, but I don't think.
I don't think it's gonna blow
I
away
don't
like
think it's going to collapse at all. I mean, the
no.
worst that would happen is we might rip the plastic. Um,
Do we have a link to?
If it's a greenhouse, we have the video is in process.
Yeah.
There'll be a full long play video
Well, what I'll
on
probably
the
do,
full build out on
yeah,
that.
what I'll do is I'll try to put together a short one first, and then I'll put a detailed one together as a secondary video. That is still in process, so we haven't put the plastic up, so it's not quite done yet, but it will come up when it's done. So I didn't do a part by part video
And I'll
at this point, so that will, yeah,
and I can tell you, it's probably 3 days work. Um,
full days.
yeah, well, we had some transitions and part days and ran back to the
Yeah.
store. We self-designed it. We self-bent it. Actually, cobbled together our regular 4 foot hoop bender or 4 foot high hoop bender. We used that
To bend those poles.
we self-bent and cloned all the poles, and we bought a couple of specialty attachments which we'll have links for that are made for that. But it's completely self-designed, self-fabricated. We designed the door,
And it's to fit that
so
house. So if you're doing it on a different house, you're gonna have to
you can
work with what you have,
modify the techniques.
because we're pulling the line straight off of our porch roof there, which isn't a full
And
porch, obviously.
Target was about we guessed we could do it for about $400. I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
$450. I'm gonna call it. It may be plus or minus, but let's call it. It's $450, so it's very inexpensive. Um, and we had all the tools around. The only thing we warn you on is we have a brick face, which is
Yes.
good because if once you create a high humidity environment for a long period of time, you could create mold growth or other things if you have um, moisture getting up behind certain types of siding. Or
Yeah.
so you may want to think about you need a moisture barrier or what we have brick, so it's great. It's perfect.
Yeah, and the brick holds heat too, so it's good for the
Yeah,
greenhouse.
for a heat sink.
And
We have a concrete slab for the first few feet.
yep.
Which is a stupid porch that's unusable because it's so small.
It's so skinny. Like we have this rocking bench there, and when there was a railing that went across in between those posts that we took down, and you can even sit hardly
Yeah, it
on that
needs to be
rocking.
against it. So
Yeah.
this will be a more usable space.
How big is the whole space?
It's
It's 18 feet long,
mhm,
and how deep is it? 10 feet?
almost 10 feet.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good size, and it is almost 10 feet tall. It's about 9.5 feet tall at
Yeah.
the back of it.
And the door, so it's not 18 feet long, the entire front length of it, because this door, you could hardly see it in the picture. I'll go back to it, but the door is way back in the back. It's inset a little bit. So
Standard 36-inch
yeah,
storm door.
so it doesn't come out as far as the rest of
And
it.
cost wise, if you found a used storm door and built that out, I mean that's a third of the cost.
Yeah.
Is
The door
the
itself.
door and the door, and we took the least expensive reason. I think it was the second or third least expensive door we could find, and we got it on special and stuff. But if you took that part out of the equation, um, you're
Yeah.
probably at $300 ish or less.
Oh yeah, because
Maybe
that
less.
door. I mean, what was the total cost of that door? That was
Almost
like
150 for the door, but then the
yeah,
frame out is probably another 50 plus. So
yeah,
let's call it at least $200 on the project is just the door. The rest of it's minimal.
yeah. So yeah, it's pretty. It's going to be a big size. I think I'm going to be able to get like 2 rows of shelves in there, a short row and maybe a taller row of
And
shelves
that
for growing things.
we have an outlet in there. It goes to our front window, which really
Yeah.
isn't used because we don't get sun through there. A lot of sun. We'll get more sun, so it extends that area. We have gravel in those flower beds in front of the concrete.
It's another heat
It's
sink.
an unused flower bed, so it's got a heat sink there. There's a hardware cloth, or there's web
Landscaping
cloth, yeah,
cloth.
landscaping cloth underneath the gravel. We would have never put either that in or the gravel in a bed, but they're already there, so it creates a nice buffer. So as you grow things, it allows drainage and a buffer between your growing medium and knowing where your base is. So all those things were perfectly in place. It has
Mhm.
entrance to our front door, which we don't really use, entrance to our garage
Garage
door,
side
which we
door.
use. So that's why we put in a nice storm door. And now the UPS guy, we get
Can
quite a
drop it
few
inside.
packages. He can open the door and slide packages in there when the weather's bad. So, yeah.
What temp will you keep the greenhouse at night? We're going to see, we're going to experiment a little bit with it. We're going to put 1 layer of plastic on the outside of those poles, but we could put a second layer of plastic on the inside. Now we're passively heating. We're not actually going to heat
Yeah, we're
it
not going to
at
heat.
all, but you have the heat from the house in the back. You have the heat sinks with the brick and the slab, cement slab, and as well as the rocks underneath, and that south facing, of course, as well. So now we do have trees in front, but they've all lost their leaves, so we get in the wintertime good amount of sun at that angle through much of that.
Low tunnel technology, you can get just simple hoops like that are exposed. You can get 30, almost 40 degrees temperature increase during the day. It heats the soil, and it can cause a 10 to 15 degree increase even
at
through the
night.
night, which means you don't quite get frozen at night before it recovers.
Hmm.
Again, we don't have full sun there right now. We want to take some trees down. So let's say we're going to get 15 to 20 degree temperature rise during the day. It's also the higher the tunnel, the less
Less.
temperature rise.
But we have heat sinks in this, and where we wouldn't
Yeah.
have as much of that in a low tunnel.
So we'll gather heat off the wall, off the ground.
Yeah.
We'll have heat coming off of the house. We have a large window that's only moderately thermal, so that will be giving heat from the house. So I'm going to guess we will maintain nearly 20 degrees above the ambient temperature.
Yeah.
And so we'll kind of monitor. The other thing we can do, we have no intention of
Look at
heating
this.
it.
Temperature, humidity, weather station on sale at Lowe's for $10.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we should probably go check that out.
I have temperature humidity monitors that plug into my computer down in my pasta production rooms.
Yeah.
Actually need to download the data, but then you have to go download. But that's pretty good.
I mean, all we have to do is be able to look
Yeah,
out
we
the
want to
window.
keep. We're not going to be growing peppers and and stuff.
Tomatoes and stuff. It's
We
just,
would like to
well, we
keep
might
it.
start them. early,
If we
but
could
yeah.
keep it in the middle of the winter, even 40 degrees, 45,
Oh yeah, you
it
could
would be
grow at that
great.
temperature.
Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is we could hang. We do have an outlet there.
Tina,
Um,
where are you actually? What I forget what are you in North Carolina? Was that where you're at? Because you say it gets down to 42 at night, cold nights in there. We outdoor temperatures here, we could get down to -15.
that's really, yeah, -5 to -15 is pretty
Come
extreme.
back. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
every few years.
yeah, I mean, the first year I moved into the house when I was learning to take care of the chickens, it was 3 feet of snow and -15. So
North
that is
Carolina.
extreme. Yeah, I was right
Yeah,
in.
so we'd be if our minimum was 42 at the middle of the night or at our low
We'd be
point every
lucky.
day, we'd be really happy with that. We also have a few grow lights
Yeah.
that were gifted to us through some neighbors that moved.
So we can always set those
So
up.
if we feel like we don't want to run a ton of electricity, but if we feel like we're not getting the light, and we could put some grow lights in there and run those for 12 or 15 hours during the day.
Hopefully, we won't attract any anybody checking out. What are you growing in your
It's
front?
all legal in
It
Michigan
is.
now. Everybody just voted to be able to grow 12 plants. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, but no, we're not. If somebody was
Not
doing
growing
that,
that.
they would cut open the greenhouse and steal them
Yeah.
probably. But
Not growing
so
that.
the other two options, if it's getting too cold, you can actively heat it in ways. You can put in heat sinks like water or colored water or just tubs of water which absorb more
Yeah.
heat. You can also double, so you can do the outside layer of plastic.
And you can put a second layer
You can
inside.
put a second layer on the inside and you create an air gap. So in our case, it would be 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Well, it's almost an inch,
Yeah.
which is perfect. And so you lose a little bit of light with the double layer of plastic. You can also
But you gain
buy,
a lot of heat with that.
yeah, so you can change you probably increase another 10 or 15 degrees.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of this was information. Was it 3 Cs? I think it was probably
Was it Elliot Coleman?
Elliot Coleman's 3 season or four
Four
season
season
growing that
harvest.
went into detail about some of the specs
Yeah.
on what to expect with different level tunnels. Um, the other thing we can do, you can buy a thermal overlay that looks like bubble wrap.
Uh-huh.
It's certified. It's a high level of penetrance of good light. It blocks out all your UV and everything else. And it's supposed to have a huge R factor on it. It's massive. Now, those have to be secured on rails, on runners, um, onto whatever post you're using, and that slides up these runners.
Hmm.
And I think Farm Tech or somebody has those. They're expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're out of budget for this project. I don't think it's necessary, but if you're really serious and you really want some thermal insulation, there are some really nice
Yeah.
products out there.
Roots and Refuge put a black trough in their greenhouse
A
to keep
lot
it
of
warm.
people do
Yeah.
black barrels. You can do blue and green colored
Yeah. You
jugs
could
of water.
catchment. You could do as long as it's colored. You could always try to get your catchment off the roof runoff and have that as
I
a
mean,
heat sink as
our
well.
our garage, which is right next to it, in the coldest period of time in the middle of the winter, we get some freezing where the floor might freeze or water
Okay.
on the floor will freeze. But the rest of the year, we don't. The garage doesn't freeze, and it's a large space, and it's only semi-insulated. So
Yeah.
I think it'll behave similar to the garage, or maybe slightly better.
I think slightly better because
I
the
think so too.
sun exposure on it.
Yeah. So we don't know. We'll let you know, but
Yeah.
it's most of the way complete, and
I'm excited because I wanna put some herbs and some greens in there. We do have our low tunnel out back going, and we got a little late start on it, but we do have things. We have some kale growing. It's a few inches tall. We have um, some turnips growing, some radishes, some arugula, and spinach. I also started put some seeds in there for spring for carrots and parsnips. So we have a variety of things going out there.
oh, the other couple things. So we can get a snowpack. If we get 2 or 3 feet of snow, the bottom sections will also shield and insulate.
Yeah.
Although you won't get light through there, so you have to pull your plants back a little bit. Um, we could we could put a heater if we really felt like we are getting into super negatives for a number of days.
We could put a
We
heater
could
in
put
there.
a heater in there. We have the 1500 watt space heaters, but those things they don't heat that well and they really eat a lot of electricity. So generally I think it's a total waste of money
Yeah.
to run a space heater in there. But if we really felt like we were struggling at some point with it, we could temporarily run a space heater in there. I know some people do the indoor kerosene heaters. I'm always a little scared of those. We don't own any,
Mm.
but even the high end ones, I know they're pretty good, but I don't like that idea. So yeah, so we're gonna run it as a passive, no energy use. We think we'll get great results on it. And then as it starts to heat up, we're just maintaining a few things in the winter.
Yeah.
It's going to build through as we heat up in the spring is where we can really maximize our growth start. And then we'll probably have to start venting it.
Yeah.
We'll side vent it or we'll have to pull a little bit off.
Probably pull it down from the top or something.
But the other thing we can do is we can open the garage door.
Yeah.
Or the side door to the garage, and
True.
we can let hot air fill that space if
Yeah.
needed. So yeah, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape on it.
I'm just reading the grabs my jar of dressing and goes and camps out in the yellow tunnel.
Well,
Yes, we
we
have
have
good
a
Sally.
friend who has a heated greenhouse,
Hmm.
and it looks like a jungle. I don't know. She keeps it really
Yeah, she does.
loaded nice, and she sits in
Well,
there and just hangs out or grades papers in there in the middle of the
she
winter.
has, she has, I don't think it's heated except, I mean, it is heated because she has
In the
her
winter,
pottery kiln.
yeah,
She has her
that's what it
pottery
is.
kiln in there. She makes pottery and she has that in
It's
there. So,
it's an amazing little jungle of
oh my
stuff.
gosh, she keeps things going
I've
year
never
round.
physically been. I should ask to be able to
And she did that on
see
her
that.
porch too. She
Oh
made
yeah,
her porch
yeah,
into a greenhouse, except I think she used windows, not plastic.
yeah. It's nice.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so our low tunnel's not quite ready to be picking things yet, but we're in the stage where we're starting to go back and forth between cold nights, which you don't get a lot of growth in, but we've been like this last weekend we're in the 40s all weekend, so the low tunnel's going to be getting up into the 60s and 70s during the day. So you get that spurt of growth with those
I was
temperatures.
working in this sweatshirt all day. Actually, when I blew leaves on Wednesday evening
Hmm.
and Friday afternoon. Well, Friday afternoon I put a coat on because it was cold, but I actually got hot. I almost took it, and I only had a t-shirt on underneath. I almost took it off if I
Yeah.
had had
Yeah, it
anything
was
else.
upper 40s. So, and when we've been down in the freezing, the 20s and 30s, lows in the 20s.
We're done with outdoor markets. So I don't have to stand outside on Saturdays anymore. I've started to get used to it.
Yeah, we get acclimated to it. But so I did want to change the subject here for a minute because part of what I've been doing and keeping busy with over this weekend is working on updating the pasta business's webpage with all the new items, but also uh, we wanted to run basically a free shipping at a certain dollar amount. So we're at $50 and up, free shipping on there. So if anyone's interested in that, um, we do have a giveaway today too of 2 bags that we're going to be doing at the end of the show,
Not that
but
bad. Not
not
our
the
gift
basket.
basket that Cindy just put up.
No, it's a 2 bags
Um,
giveaway.
yeah, so we did for Small Business Saturday and for the next two
Yeah,
weeks heading into Christmas, and yeah,
yeah,
free shipping on anything over $50.
yeah.
Um,
So you can stock up
most
on
items are
pasta if
in
you want.
stock right now,
Mm.
and we're rapidly replenishing other
Yeah,
things. We do have a really nice gift basket there. That's $125, so it's probably for somebody you really like. But
yeah.
it does come with free shipping right now,
Hmm.
um, and it has 5 bags of pasta, and we could actually intermix if you wanted something specific. And it's a nice basket. It's not a really crappy fall apart basket. And then we have a bottle of olive oil. That is a 35
Premium.
$35 value plus
Hmm.
shipping right there.
Yeah.
So a bottle of balsamic, a bottle of artichoke spread, a bottle of Rayo's marinara sauce.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so it's that's a pretty nice one. We've got a number of them ready. We will run out at some point, but we can also probably pull a few more together if we need to. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for something really special, we'll pat it up really well,
Thanks,
and
Tina.
we'll get it shipped out. Nothing is highly perishable
Yeah.
in there, so it can go on a, a 3 or 4 day shipping without any problem. We're not, so it doesn't force an overnight exorbitant charge.
No.
So
So yeah, we do have that free shipping promotion if you want to stock up on pasta at all. We will give
and olive oil. We put
and
the
olive
olive
oil.
oils now up on the website. So
And the olive oil is pretty, it's a nice olive oil. It has a great story behind it too. It comes from, we partner with a two people who import this olive oil. She is from Lebanon. One of the olive oils that we're selling is actually from her father's grove.
very limited. She has
Yeah,
about half of their family's supply is she's started importing it a year ago. The remainder of it stays in the family. So
yeah,
it's sort of like wine when you get those really nice family release specialty collections. And that's what it is.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then the second type she's importing is from the same village in Lebanon, a little higher elevation, same types of olives, um, slightly different taste based on just the elevation difference and the location. So if you know about terroir, depending
hmm.
on where you live, you're gonna have different
Do we have
flavors.
descriptions of the flavor profiles on the website?
No, we do
We
need to
need to
add
get
that.
that on there because you can't.
Yeah,
Usually we have bottles available for
yeah.
tasting. They're both medium bodied, classic olive oils with a little bit of pepperiness on the back end, which is a
Mhm.
sign of freshness and quality. They're extra virgin. The one family one, which is the Eden,
Yeah,
won a silver medal in Italy in May.
yeah.
It's one of the only uh, items to go to Italy and grade so high. So those are there. But yeah, they're both kind of medium bodied, but one is very light and a little buttery, and the other one is a little more grassy and minerally. So, and they're both really good. It just depends on what your preference is. So we need to get
Oh,
a
look at that.
description up there.
Tina says that she made some of our pasta tonight
Oh,
for
well, that's very
dinner.
nice.
Or sorry, Linda said that, and Tina said that they made it on Saturday night, their last bag of it. So awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
so we're not,
So
this is not for shameless, promotion infomercials, but
yeah,
it's definitely out there. It's
and we give it away every once in a while to you guys.
And
So
we're going to be giving away some tonight.
tonight,
It is our monthly giveaway. Does fall tonight.
yeah. Well, we have
Um,
to do it tonight because the month changes.
yeah, so we are going to be giving away
Two bottles, two
two
packages.
bags of pasta, and we'll allow whoever the
Yeah,
winner to select what
which ones?
varieties, so they will receive those mailed out to them
Yeah.
complimentary. So yeah, it is artisan. It's part of our homestead. It's handmade product, and so we definitely stand behind it, and so it's a good thing to have out there.
And what we do plan on doing is eventually here, as I get caught up on videos, is starting a little bit of a series of, just what considerations to take in if you're trying to start a home business using what we're doing as an example. So if you're interested in that, it's part of the sustainability in a way because um, trying to have your
We
own
didn't
business.
purposely do it based on homesteading
No,
ideas or principles, or
but it
permaculture
fits
ideas, but
into
I
it.
think it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can diversify your income. You can have a little more control over some of it. Um, you can take product and produce. So in our case, there's really no mill. Well, I do have the flour is grown and milled by
Yeah.
a couple different sources and transported, but you have more direct economy going on, and we happen to do a lot of it through our home, which was unexpected that we built
Yeah.
a commercial kitchen to do that. So that's where it sort of became more
Home based.
homestead, and we already had ideas on quality standards that come really from being professional chef.
Yeah.
That I had a standard that needed to be met as part of our brand. So those are all good things that
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it does, it changes. We do the farmers market weekly now, so we know a lot of people. We do a lot of trading, a little bartering, but it's more informal. I got some extra this, and we give some stuff around. So it
Oh,
does actually kind of lower cash economy a little bit.
if there's no ask the chef. Okay, we're gonna come back to that, Tina. I have a feeling we're gonna go a little over.
We do have we did a quick question
No,
on mushrooms,
Tina
but
had asked that
yes,
question on mushrooms. she had the oyster mushroom kit that she sent us a message on, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
her. So
Yes, of
Tina
course it
does
was
have a
Tina.
meatball question too, but you know what? Let's do the giveaway first, so that if people are, because it's going to be getting late,
Yeah.
so if
Okay.
people do need to
Yeah.
take off, they can. But we do have a question. We have last week.
All right. So this is the warm up. This is not the question.
This is the warm up.
This shouldn't be too hard. So
Yeah.
we had some antique items. Two of them we showed you last week that were actually tough ones.
Yeah.
These are kitchen. This is a kitchen
Kitchen
item.
item.
I think a lot of people know what this is, what the name of it is, and what it's used for. And then we'll follow up with the.
So this is the warm up question. Do you know what this is and what it's used for
Kind
in
of
the
jimmied
kitchen?
together with the wire still. It looks, or maybe that was a tag. I think that was a tag. Somebody probably had a garage.
Garage sale.
It's a little rusty. I'm not. I mean, I could use it, but I'm not sure I'd really
Clean
feel
it
like.
up well
Yeah, it's
enough.
kind of a. I don't know. It's sort of like.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, it's a ricer.
So that wasn't the giveaway. Sorry, that was the
That's an
warm
old
up.
style ricer, which is actually, by the way, when you make mashed potatoes, the best way to do it is to put it through a food mill or a ricer because it prevents the potatoes from collapsing and getting really gluey because you've collapsed them. So if you shock them with really cold dairy milk or whatever, or you spin them too much,
Yep.
you could yeah, if you spin them too much, you'll end up getting them really gloppy. It looks a lot like a spatzel maker. It's a little spatzel makers. There's three different types and of spatzel makers that I know about. And there is one that's a press that's very similar, but the holes would be slightly bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've because there's Swiss, Austrian, and German spatzel.
So Suburban Hillbilly, the next one is the one for the pasta. 2 bags of pasta. I put the webpage up earlier if it's working.
And I've made a lot of spatzel over the years in restaurants. I worked for some German and Austrian chefs, Swiss chefs. Worked at a place that was a heavily Austrian kitchen. Yeah, we made a lot of spatzel. All right, so this is the
giveaway. Whoever
for 2
can
bags
figure
of
out
pasta.
what this is.
So it's a glass dome. There's a little plunger. It doesn't come all the way out, which is not important that it comes out or doesn't come out. It's just got a little glass. Oh, it
did come out all the way
All
out.
right, there we go.
I think it's because it's so worn.
Yeah, this is probably from the possibly the 1880. It was. Is that what I read?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's a pre-1900, most likely. Very late 1800s.
It has
some
a
cows on it.
Yeah, cow on the plunger and cows on the sides. Oh, guess who got it?
Yep, Suburban Hillbilly, that is correct. It is a butter mold. So after you make your butter, you've churned your butter, you need to wash your butter. So you wash it in water and you kind of get the last bits out. And then after you've rinsed it, you can decide to salt it or not. And then you mound it into balls. And then you may put it into blocks or different forms or presses. And this would be one home method that you would put a chunk in here and you would press down hard, and that would form it pretty much into a round, almost like a tub style mold. And this does have a cow, so you would get a little cow imprint on it.
Yeah.
And so this would be for molding your finished
butter
soft before you refrigerate and firm up your butter. You don't actually have to refrigerate butter if you cover it properly.
They wouldn't have at that point.
You would not have.
No, they didn't have much refrigeration when that was commonly used.
So, yeah.
So yeah, so it's butter butter mold. Suburban Hillbilly got that right. So Suburban Hillbilly, you could go to the web page and then shoot us an email at parttimepermies. Parttimepermies is all one word at gmail.com. And let us know which 2 pastas you would like.
We'll get those mailed out, I think, before the end of the week.
Yep. And for anyone else, if they're interested in any of the pasta, please feel free to check out the webpage as well. I'll put it up here one more time. It is in the description below, by the way.
You could totally use something like that now. So I looked up online to make. I had a good idea what it was. I actually at first thought it was I had it upside down, the way it was sitting, and the handle was loose. I thought it was for taking curds and pressing curds or cheese, but it didn't make a lot of sense with a hole in the bottom to push the remainder away for like compacting a fresh cheese, not a hard aging cheese, but like a
Hmm.
farmhouse cheese.
Like,
But that
yeah,
didn't fully make sense, and the cows were upside down. So I
yeah, the
did
way
check
it was
online.
said.
There's a number of these online.
Yeah,
They're going for about $40 actually.
yeah.
It's actually kind of a nice little antique. This handle's in good shape.
Hmm.
It's in pretty darn good shape. So either it was minimally used and pretty well stored away in a cupboard, or somebody put a new oak handle on it. I can't tell which. It could have been either.
Yeah.
But I saw somewhat similar handles on, and I saw one on eBay that was almost exactly the same pattern.
Hmm.
So it is definitely
It's definitely out
butter,
there.
butter
Butter mold.
form, yeah, butter mold.
Yeah, so that's a white picket fence to get the water out of the butter and press it into its
Yeah,
shape.
get it into the shape, and you
Yeah,
get a little bit of water out of it.
yeah.
So yep,
So yeah.
butterball. I used to buy a lot of butterballs for the restaurants where they have them pre-formed in bags. They're expensive, but they're not that bad, and they look
Never had
nice for
balls.
banquets.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the giveaway. Now we could go back to ask the chef if you guys like. It's 5 minutes to 10, and we usually end up going over. We can't go too much over because if we want to get the
We want
plastic
to try
on
and get to the
tonight,
plastic up, and then I
I
got
have to go to bed.
fairly busy day of stuff to do tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then we're into full on pasta production. We did two markets again this week. We picked up
Yes.
a new holiday market, which I
This one.
haven't
It
done the numbers on it, but it was kind of
was
so
slow.
slow. But we were really among the only there was some coffee, but there was very limited food
Yeah.
items, which was our thought and why we
It was
wanted to
more
be there because
crafts.
we felt like we would. I think we made a little bit of money, but by the time you spend the time and pay the fee,
But it
I
was,
don't know if it was a great. I think it could build over a couple of years.
yeah, no,
It's in a new location.
it was also for just extremely
It
local.
was all very
It was
local
all
artisan.
Mattawan.
Yeah.
All, our little village of however many
Well, I mean,
people.
we had people from Hartford, but they were
Yeah.
within a pretty tight area, and it was actually a nice group of. It was pretty nice, a little bit higher end
Mhm.
stuff because some of the crafts fairs you get a lot of tchotchke that's kind of like, are you kidding me? You know, stuff. But
No, they had a
it
lot
was
of good stuff.
actually a nice selection of stuff.
Yeah.
So Cindy did that market, and I
Mhm.
helped finish it out. I went and did the regular. It was the first day of the indoor market,
Mhm.
which is a little slow after Thanksgiving. A lot of even some of the vendors skip, and I skipped last year. But
Yeah.
it had okay sales, and then it'll be busy through Christmas, and then it'll kind of be up and down on the weather.
Yeah.
But we're there weekly for our regular customers, and because that's sort of the only game in town in the winter on Saturdays.
Yep.
So
So yeah. Um, we had asked the chef. We did have that question, Tina, about keeping your mushrooms from getting, well, it was specifically oyster
why
mushrooms
are
from
yeah?
getting,
How is there any good way to not have oyster mushrooms be mushy?
yeah, or
Well,
slimy.
slimy, yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, if they're getting old, mushrooms will be slimier than if they're fresh.
Mhm.
Oyster and mushrooms, as soft and delicate as they appear, they are actually structurally quite strong. They have chitin in them, which is found in lobster and shrimp shells, found in I think in your fingernails, and so they even under heat and stuff, they're somewhat
You hold up
fairly strong. But as they start to break down and disintegrate, they'll get slimy. There are some mushrooms, specifically like honey mushrooms,
that are a little
which
more,
are pretty slimy. They have amazing flavor,
yeah.
and some people, like Asian cultures, really like the sticky, slimy. Americans tend not to like it, but the flavor's so good, sometimes you kind of put up with it. Um, but oysters are not a slimy mushroom.
No.
The other thing you can do is, even if you put them in soup and things, they will be soft and slippery, but they will have some structure. Um, Typically, you want to saute. I like sauteing mushrooms, although they grill fine. The firmer ones,
Hmm.
you can definitely grill clumps of oyster mushrooms or individual petals. You can roast them by adding some olive oil or other oils and some sea salt or herbs and putting them in a. I like to do like a 450 oven, a fairly hot oven, and get them kind of brown and roasty.
Hmm.
Now you're drying them out because they're not getting overly saturated in oil. The water that's coming out from cooking is going into the oven space. But the easiest way is to saute them. So you want to get a heavy bottom steel or cast iron pan, your heaviest bottom pan. put it on
Get it hot.
medium hot to high, usually at a home oven on high, um, till when you kind of lay your hand over, and this is always when you tell a pan is hot, you start to feel a little bit of heat. So at home, it may take a minute or two, and then you add your oil. So you don't want to start with your oil. One, you want to make sure your pan is dried out, and two, the oil can start to break down. So you want to put in a generous amount of oil because it's like a sponge. Mushrooms will absorb a lot of oil, so you might put in an ounce or more depending on how many mushrooms. You have your clean mushrooms, make sure they're not too wet so they don't spatter. Mushrooms can be washed if they're really dirty or buggy. You can wash them and then pat them dry, but ideally they should be just kind of
And if you're growing
brushed
your
off.
own,
Indoors, you don't need to wash them at all.
yeah, you just cut them off and they
Yeah,
should be,
it's outdoor
yeah,
mushrooms that if they're really
if the
buggy.
bugs have gotten in them. Yeah.
Then you're going to sear them in a pan. So you add the oil you want to use a neutral oil. I wouldn't use a good olive oil. Use a vegetable blend oil of your choice. It should be lightly smoking. Now at home, you always want to be a little more careful because if you have a flare up at home, there's maybe more things around. It's a little harder to deal with it. In a restaurant, we can flare it to the ceiling of the vents, and
And they don't care.
it doesn't matter. You throw grease all over, and there's nothing there. But in case there's a flare up from water or a pan you can get a pan too hot, where when you pour that oil in, it starts smoking heavily and bursts into flame. If that happens, you need to put a lid. If you're concerned about that, have a sheet pan or a lid and just slip it over the top, turn the heat off, and let it and let it go out.
Yeah.
Give it some time. I mean, if you have salt handy or baking soda, that's fine. But otherwise,
Just smother it.
yeah, just smother it. Leave it exactly where it's at, and throw a sheet pan over. It'll go out.
Yeah.
Then clean the pan out and start over because it'll taste bad. But you want your pan lightly smoking hot. And when it's lightly smoking, you're going to put in your mushrooms. Mushrooms should be put in so there's generous room. So do them in a few batches if you have to. Give it plenty of room because they're going to give off a tremendous amount of liquid. And as they're searing down, they're going to take the heat out of the pan from the liquid, and then they're going to start giving off liquid. And you want to really brown them. And then when they get about halfway done, you can adjust the heat if you need to, but and just kind of leave them there for a moment. Once they brown, turn them over, see if the pan's losing heat or needs to recover. Season them partway through. If you season them early, like salting them, the salt.
Sorry, I got distracted by
Oh,
Linda. We do like the letter P.
yeah. So salt will pull out moisture. So we don't want to salt mushrooms early because now they'll have a lot of moisture on the exterior, and we're trying to fight that moisture on a softer mushroom with the oil in the hot pan. So once they've started to sear down, then you can season them partway through. They'll get nice and brown. You'll develop a lot more flavor when you brown mushrooms. You get a good browning on them. They'll start to dehydrate. And then towards the very end, if you want to add pepper or herbs or shallots kind of towards the end, you can throw that in to season them up. And then set them off to the side. You can even put them on a paper towel and let them drain. Go do your next batch. And once they're nice and brown, then you can pick them all up and together and finish it into whatever dish you're going to use it. So you'll really develop a lot of flavor from the browning. You'll resist sliminess from that high heat, generous space, and use enough oil. Add more oil if you have to.
And that was awesome. But Tina, you said you had another question about meatballs. I'll let you type it in there. But as you type it in there, Linda, I want to tell you and everybody else about another project that we will have a video on that has a lot of peas if I put it all in the title if you really want to. It's pickled peppers from part-time Permies, picked from part-time Permies plants.
Yeah, we gotta get those done.
Yeah.
We were hoping to do those tonight,
We're gonna
finish them tonight.
We have them pickling, but we have
one of them wasn't somewhat open fermenter. It started to pick up a little yeast, and I hit it with some strong vinegar. But I need to get that taken care of.
We're making
pureed so we don't lose it.
We're making pepper sauce with it.
Yeah.
So
the dry itchy nose from being outside all day today.
But yeah, if you want a title with a lot of peas, we might have one coming eventually here. Okay, how do you make
meatballs that don't fall apart? Oh, okay. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong with meatballs. Sort of like macaroni and cheese. It's not the hardest thing to do, but a lot of people either struggle with it or end up with pretty bad products. And
So
Yeah,
there's some tricks.
there are some tricks. Actually, I would say meatballs are a little tougher than macaroni and cheese. I would put it as a a step up challenge wise. So the reason they're falling apart is probably what type of meat are you using? Would be a good question. And you know what
Percentage
type of
fat.
fat? Is it
Yeah.
like a 90-10 or an 80-20 if it's beef? That's when you usually know. Other things really don't tell you. Is it a blend of pork and beef or pork, beef and veal, or is it turkey? So knowing what protein it is and if you know anything about the fat content would be the starting point.
And how much fat do you need in it?
Um, I like anything that is ground.
Hmm.
So hamburgers, meatballs, sausages. I like to be in the 25 to 30% fat.
Yeah.
You can go down to 20% fat. Don't go below 20% fat. I know everybody says we want to limit fat. 80. Okay, so you got a classic. So classic ground beef. If you grind the shoulder,
Yeah.
the chuck, which is another name for the shoulder, the front part. If you grind that, it should automatically come out to an 80-20 grind on an average. So that's fine. It's not overly fatty, but it's not lean. So if you're doing 90-10 because you think you're being healthy, you're just making a mess.
It doesn't
In
work
chef
well.
world, it doesn't work on ground stuff. It just makes a really
How do
dry,
you
crumbly
how
burger.
do you make an 80-20 and bring it up to what you need to hold together?
Well, so you would either take a higher level fat item. So what a butcher does now, they actually have to monitor. They would just grind. Now they actually check it.
Yeah.
Um, Legally have to do it. So they would just grind in extra fat.
Hmm.
Now, ideally, there's better fats. There's intermuscular fat, and then there's just like the heavy fat that I try not to grind the heavy fat in because while it will give you the 80-20, to me, I feel like that's not as good of a quality flavor or health wise.
But
But
not everyone's doing their own
no,
animals.
no, you can grind in. But the easiest way is to take something lean is to grind pork into it. Butter. Yeah, butter would be nice, but butter melts too fast. So you need to grind a solid fat.
Hmm.
So you could grind fat back. Make sure it's not salted. But the easiest thing to do is grind bacon. Or because bacon is like 70 or 80% fat and 20 or 30% lean meat. So if
You
you
only
eat
need to
pork
add a
and you
little.
now that's going to be smoked, but
Yeah.
yeah, you could grind with the little, and that's where a KitchenAid, it's even best if it's a little frozen. You could chop up some bacon and you could run it through a little bit of
Yeah. Store
a
bought.
little kitchen grinder, and you could fold in some bacon if it's too low.
Like what percentage would you do like
I
the 80-20 meat
I
and
mean,
then bacon?
you could start doing fancy kitchen math on it. But if
Just play by ear
yeah, I would do about 20%.
of the it being
Yeah,
bacon.
yeah. So if you're at well, my mom can do the I can do the math too, but my mom can do the perfect math on it. So we run all these yield ratios in baking and other things to
Yeah.
balance it out. But I would run about 20% bacon if I'm concerned. Like I'm using a venison would be a good where it's naturally super lean and grass fed because
Yeah.
it was wild game. You almost always have to grind in another
Bacon.
fat source. So pork belly, which would be uncured and fairly neutral, or smoked bacon um, would be your way to bump it up. So ideally on a great meatball, I'd like to see 25%, but 20 is going to be fine. Um, you're going to take that. You're going to mix in whatever your preferred fresh or dried spices are. Um, you know, salt, pepper, hot sauce. Salt. Too much salt will pull water out. It
Yeah.
will. So you do want some salt. And in fact, sausage making. If you
And if
look
you're putting bacon in, you don't need much
You
salt,
don't
do
need
you?
much salt because you're adding that. In fact, sausage recipes, the reason they're so high in salt is partly because a lot of them are poached.
Mm.
And so they're poached in water and they lose salt and to make them taste good. But also you need the salt as part of the curing and preservation. So to get the right consistency, texture, and if you're going to hang it, you have the high salt for that.
Yeah.
Could you add sausage to the meat? Yeah, you
Yeah.
could. You could use a pork sausage. That's going to be a little leaner than bacon, but you could do 25 to 50% pork sausage. So a classic Italian meatball is about 50% beef, 25% pork, and 25% veal. Now the veal is going to be really lean. The beef's going to be whatever they gave And then the pork's going to be fattier. You can buy that blend occasionally, frozen or fresh. You'll see the little pack that's got the three together. So
Mhm.
if you're really making fancy Sunday afternoon meatballs, think about doing the three meat blend. You'll get a really good flavor. Um,
Yeah.
you're going to put everything in there, and then you're going to put in you're going to put in probably some breadcrumbs would be good. So bread is a binder.
Mm.
You may put a few eggs in. So like,
Unless you're gluten free, you probably won't put the bread.
well, you could put a gluten-free meal in. So what that does is it holds moisture, um, so
Mhm.
that you get water. Water gets into that bread and it helps lighten it up because an all meat meatball can be too, it can seize up and bind up. So adding a little bit of breadcrumb, adding some sauteed onions that are finely diced or ground. And if you want to add a few eggs, eggs will set up and help that whole
Mm.
emulsion come together and bind. So you could use 1 or 2 eggs per pound,
Mm.
whole eggs. You can, so you make it just like meatloaf, mix it all together. Um, I know some people that even add a little bit of yogurt. Now, the
Hmm.
interesting thing about yogurt is that is adding some dairy or a drop of cream. But if you add yogurt, you're changing the pH on it
Huh.
slightly. You're not adding a lot. And so that can be kind of a secret to making a soft meatball is lightly changing the pH with, you know, maybe a couple.
Oatmeal instead of bread, you
Yeah,
talk about?
oatmeal is fine. Oatmeal is, it'll work fine, and you use oatmeal a lot of blood sausages, and a variety of other traditional sausages, barley, oatmeal, different grains.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so you could use any of that. So when you mix eggs and bread or eggs and cream, you get eggs, cream, and bread. It's called a panada. And so you'll see panada in meatloaves. You'll see it in meatballs and a variety of recipes. So it's a classical panada, and especially if you're doing something like veal, you're doing ground veal. It's really lean. You got to have the eggs and cream and all that in a pate. You'll see a lot of times you'll mix up your meat and then you'll grind through and with a panada, and that helps hold your
You
pate
know what I
together.
think of when you say eggs, cream, and bread?
Bread pudding.
Well, that would be good too. I was thinking French toast.
Yeah, I mean that's so. So the panada is a, you'll grind that in on like fresh soft white bread cubes with the crust cut off.
Mhm.
Will get ground into your country pates and your
Mhm.
finer pates. It frequently has some eggs, and you pour a little cream in there to bring it all together. So you're creating an emulsion, a binding of fat, protein, and water,
Mhm.
and you're causing it to form a nice mass that all comes together. So if you do that, that will guarantee a soft meatball. The next thing you do is once you've kind of hand mixed it all together, um, you can put it in your KitchenAid on your dough paddle, and you can paddle it for about 30 seconds or a minute.
Hmm.
And that causes a stretching. So when you do this with most of your sausages, if you're making fresh or cured sausages, you should paddle them because you get the stretching of the ground and torn meat fibers start to hook and grab, and
Why do you cut off the crusts?
you cut off the crust because the crust can be crumbly and hard. Um, they can be, and so they can show up in your pate or show up in your meatball. The more country style or the softer the crust, the more you may want to grind it in there. But it would just show, and you don't want it to necessarily know that it's there.
Yeah.
So that's why you would, and we would use
It depends on how crusty your bread is too.
yeah, if you're in how crusty and how dark it is, and so, but in a classical sense, you would get Pullman loaves, which are the solid square loaves, and you would just cut them off, and then we dice them up and throw them in there. If you take, so yeah, you paddle it until you get a stretching and you start seeing a stringing and a pulling where it starts, and so everything's grabbing on, and you're getting this nice. It's called a farce now, where you've begun your, and it's meatballs, pates, meatloaf, um, and you might start hearing kind of a slurping, sucking noise. So if you have a bigger mixer, you'll hear that as it's grabbing the sides of the bowl.
Huh.
the more the more you want it to hold together on a sausage, the more you mix it. The more you want it kind of crumbly and loose, you mix it less. So for a meatball, I would mix it 30 seconds to a minute. For a sausage that I want to have a real nice, fairly tight and hold together so I could slice it, I might mix it, on low also, by the way. You're just
Mix it
massaging it.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might mix 1 to 2 minutes. If you over mix it, what will happen is it will start squeezing and tearing the water out of it, and it'll actually get crumblier and drier because you're tightening down the protein. So you're doing, and it should be done cold. So the salt, the cold, the the protein, everything all mixed together. Any acid component is affecting the chemistry of the protein, which is affecting the physics of the whole thing, and that's what makes a great sausage.
And a
um,
great
it's
meatball.
less important on a meatball. You could just hand mix a meatball, but if you can do that final mixing, especially if you're making a lot,
A reason
um,
to use your mixer.
yeah, and get everything dirty, right? But it's so you do that, and then some people, if it's a little dry, they put if you haven't done the yogurt or other things, they can put a little splash of cold stock or water or wine, can go in there, flavorful liquid. Um,
Beer.
you might be able to do beer. Yep, yep. So those are that also before you do the mixing, it's going to bring it in. You do that in sausage. You add water to sausage a lot of times. It's not to just add water to get more money and more poundage out of it. It's actually to get the proper emulsion balance. And then when you get into fancy like bolognas and hot dogs, sometimes you actually add in a little non-fat dry milk. In your lean veal items, bratwurst can have a little non-fat milk, which is a binder, emulsification binder for those smooth sausages. But yeah, so you're gonna mix it, and then you're gonna do you make a little patty. You're gonna see that it sticks together. You're gonna cook that patty in a pan, and you're gonna taste it.
Patty? Really? Not the ball?
No, because it's not gonna cook.
Okay.
The ball's not
Yeah.
gonna cook in a pan. Now you can poach it, but if you poach it, you need to wrap it up in a little baggie because you don't want the salt to get out of it. So you can't put it. So the best thing is throw it in a skillet and just cook it off to medium rare or however you like it, and taste it. And that's going to tell you, well, if it's too salty or too much oregano or something, you're stuck. You're just going to have to double your recipe and get more meat, which you probably don't have. But if it's under seasoned or under spiced, you can add a little bit more in, and before you've scooped everything out or you've baked it all off and it's under seasoned. Now you might even want to do that test before you paddle it, because once you paddle it, it's kind of hard to adjust things. So I would actually do that first, and then I would paddle it, knowing that's called your test. When we do sausages, we would actually take little pieces of plastic and we'd roll them up into tight little balls and we'd tie them down, try not to get water in them, and we'd throw them in boiling water and we'd poach them. Because seared does taste a little different than poached. So you always do a test, especially when you're doing 100 pounds of, before you ruin 100 pounds of product. And then you're ready to go make your meatballs. So you should scoop out your meatballs. Hopefully you get a little scooper or whatever you want to do, spoons. Portion them out, nice size. And then you can, nope. And then after you scoop them, you're actually going to want to go back and hand roll them all, even after you scooped them. So you're going to, a little oil on your hands. But that process of going through the rolling is going to be one more step of tightening it up. Not only bringing it into shape, but forming that ball and tightening the protein. At that point, when we did trays, trays and trays, we used to bake them off in a hot oven for like 10 minutes just to brown them and firm them up. And we'd pour off it would squeeze out some of the liquid or some of the yogurt or things. Pour that off because it's junk. And then we would go into our tomato sauce and let it braise for 2 or 3 hours. But in a traditional American Italian kitchen, you would frequently fry your meatballs. Again, that frying gets the browning and really develops the flavor. So you'd fry your meatballs in a cast iron with some oil or even a deep fryer, just enough to get them lightly browned. Then you transfer them to your sauce, or especially your tomato, and then you go bring it to a simmer. And then if you have handles that can go in an oven, ideally once things won't come to a simmer in the oven, even if it's 350. So you bring it to a light simmer and give it a stir, make sure it doesn't burn. And when you slip it in the oven at 350, it'll stay simmering. Put a top on it, and then we would let our meatballs go for 2 or 3 hours slow in the oven, and they'll be really soft. Just braising in that sauce, and then of course the sauce tastes great. You can scrape the oil. The oil will come to the top, and you just scrape off some of the oil. Discard that. You can stir in a little bit of it, and then you would have your classic Italian meatball and tomato sauce, but
Yeah.
you can do it. And by the way, you can make a lot of those meatballs. Throw them on a sheet pan, freeze them, on the pan. When they're frozen in an hour or two, you can knock them off of the pan and throw them
In bags.
in bags, and you can have them ready to
Individual.
go. Take them frozen, and pull them frozen raw, and then
Cook
throw them
'em up.
back on a sheet pan with a little space when they're half frozen, and you can cook them off. Don't fry them; they'll
That
boil over from the ice crystals, but you can brown them in the oven. So that is, and we made a lot of meatballs at one place I worked. I worked at an Italian place, and we didn't make any meatballs. I couldn't. It's like, why aren't we making meatballs?
Yeah.
We sold a lot, and we actually had a good one we bought from somebody, but um, it's like I thought we were
Yeah.
going to be making a lot of meatballs.
All right.
So I do think we made it slightly better. We made thousands of them. We'd sit around on slow nights with like 6 of us, and we make 80 or 120 pounds of meatball mix in a huge 30-quart mixer or a 60-quart mixer that you could hardly lift it up. And we'd have 1 or 2 people scooping and 3 or 4 people all standing around, dishwashers, everybody, rolling meatballs and putting them on sheet pans to freeze them down because we needed so many at times.
Thanks, Suburban. We'll get to that email, get that sent out this week.
Yeah, so that's sort of the long, but it's meatballs aren't complicated, but going through the steps makes a difference. And if you cut 1 or 2 of the steps, they'll still come out really good.
Yeah.
But if you go through and you do all of them, you start with good meat and the right fat and a nice blend of things,
Yeah.
and then you step through that process.
White picket fence, that is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, just make a lot of these things. I only make. I don't. A lot of times I buy meatballs, but they're never that good. They're okay. Some are okay, but they always taste charred and burned and funky. You don't know what they did to them. But there's a lot of these things like making tomato sauce or making meatballs. You only have to make it once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
The process of doing it is the hard part. The process of doubling that amount isn't that much more work. So you might as well do a lot. Throw it in a chest freezer and then pull them whenever you need them.
Yeah. Cool. So those are the meatball questions. Any other questions about meatballs? That was a long explanation for meatballs.
Yeah, well, meatballs are. I mean, it's something. Again, it's one of those things that people screw up all the time because they throw them together. Oh, we'll take some ground beef. It's like a hamburger. You go like that. It's a meatball.
There's a little more work.
It kind of works, but it's not a full-on great meatball. You can put a little Parmesan cheese in there too if you want. That kind of helps that binding.
Yeah. But. By the way, PM you the information on the Rattler station. Awesome, okay. Tina. Thank you. Yeah, that would be great to have in there and figure out, especially as the winter goes. We haven't gotten extremely cold yet, only down into the lower 20s at night. So highs have been in the 30s.
Yeah, and I run temperature humidity little ones. I have 2 mobile ones actually, one in my main production room and one on a rolling rack that I use to spot check.
I actually have one that I had in the Silky Coop because I was wondering how hot it got in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
And humid, so I got to pull that out. I forgot that was in there.
Can you freeze your meatballs after cooking them? Yeah, I would sear them. I would go through the first high heat cooking or frying where they're probably still kind of rare, medium rare in the middle. Freeze them at that point. You don't need to fully cook them.
Yeah.
And they will freeze great.
Hi, Two Family.
And then you can take them into any of your gravies and barbecue sauce and tomato sauce and whatever you want. So,
yep.
So Two Family, we were talking earlier on
the poached pears.
Yeah, we did the poached pear collaboration with you guys a week ago.
The dessert collaboration.
The dessert collaboration, which was a poached pear on our end. And I know there were some questions about getting vanilla beans from Two Family this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was Two Family, right? I think.
I think it was.
I think, I don't know, may have been related to us talking about that or other people doing things with vanilla. But we put up you have the new video up, right? Yeah, the second
poached pear.
So there is a dressing up of the poached pear, sort of a restaurant style finishing and plating.
Yeah,
and components. So that's there also as a follow up. So just for your own interest, if you want to.
She added it to the playlist.
Oh, she did. Oh, well, that's very nice. Yeah. So we thought when we started doing the shoot, I'm like, you know what? Let's shoot a second video because it'll give me a chance to
dress it up.
Do a restaurant dress up on it.
Yeah. So we were just wrapping up because we have a couple things we got to do tonight before I go to bed, and it is late, and I have to work tomorrow, and it's supposed to be snowy tomorrow, which means I have to plan on
half hour of putting plastic on. Well, not too much time. It'll
Yeah,
go pretty fast.
yeah. So we got to go. Hopefully, just about finish our
Oh,
greenhouse
are you?
almost.
Yeah, or making vanilla extract. Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, making vanilla extract, you can just stick it in rum or vodka or whatever your favorite liquor is. Just pack in as many beans as you can pack in there, and hold on to your wallet. That was sort of the discussion going on. Was the cost of vanilla has gone up? Last year was up almost 4 times, a little over a year ago, because
Night, Valerie.
almost the entire world that grows vanilla beans had droughts and tsunamis, and it just ran it through the roof, quality and even availability. Um, I think that settled a little bit, but they're still running a little bit high. So you're looking between $2 is really cheap. That's wholesale used to be about $1 a bean. They've been up in the $2 for a while. They were three
Retail.
plus. Retail, you're going to be in the $3 to $4 if you're lucky, and you're getting a good bean.
Yeah.
And you can get some crappy beans that are expensive too. There was some notes about some people recommended Costco. They do sell a little tube that has a few beans in it. I've seen it. I've never bought it, but I've looked at it, and they do look to be very nice most years. And they're $12 or $13. So some people recommended that. I tend to think that's probably it's not going to be your bargain, but you're definitely not getting
Yes.
ripped off, and it's a good quality. But the other thing I pointed out, I haven't looked at my phone since this morning. Vanilla bean, natural vanilla is great, and that's basically been steeped in alcohol, and you either get an extract, vanilla bean paste, which is thickened extract with the bean particles, or whole vanilla beans. You can also get vanilla sugar, but you can make your own vanilla sugar. I've seen vanilla salt. I don't. I think that's a waste. If you really need it to finish something, that's great, but I certainly wouldn't buy it. And a lot of
Wait,
chefs used to just scrape the beans, and then they would take the outside of the beans and throw them in a jar with the liquor.
$12 per bean at the
Yeah,
local
yeah.
store.
I think they're about at least double of anything I would even consider buying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get too excited about what type of vodka or rum you put in it. It's going to be so vanilla-y. Um, yeah, I mean, I maybe wouldn't get the plastic bottle, the little hip bottle. Although I made vodka sauce with, so I got something up in the cupboard that was.
Yeah.
And then they charged me for like 5 bottles of it. I went back to the store. I'm like, guys, do you really think I bought 5 of these little bottles?
Yeah,
So they
right.
gave me back the. I didn't know with liquor if they were going to do that. We were doing some vodka sauce or something a while ago.
Okay.
But yeah, I wouldn't get too excited. Don't spend a lot of money on it. Whatever you got laying around. So if you only scrape the beans, you can put the ends in your just a container, the ever flowing container of beans, um, and then eventually you'll discard the beans, but they can stay there. Some people stick them in sugar and they make vanilla sugar.
Mm.
Pastry chefs use that more. But I never have them left over because I don't just scrape them. I always steep them. I'm almost always putting them in milk or something.
I've never tried to grow vanilla bean orchids.
I don't know if you could. They're supposed to be
I
pretty difficult,
Yeah, they
but
are supposed to be hard to grow.
if you can, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
They only bear once a year. So Mexico, by the way, is one of the best places in the world for vanilla beans. But there's very little of it tends to come this way. Everybody talks about the Tahitian and the and what else? The whole
I've
bunch. They're all tropical Asian, African, and then Mexico has some really nice areas. But yeah, so you can do the vanilla sugar, you can do the extract. But I always steep them. I take the entire thing because it's been fermented like coffee. The whole thing has flavor, and I steep that in my liquid, either in my syrup or in my milk.
Mhm.
And but if you don't, they take up a lot of space. So they must be a big orchid because I mean
Yeah.
the bean's pretty big, and then
Yeah.
but the other thing is once you get the bean, you have to go through the right fermentation process. 5 years. Yeah, I know it's
Can you
when
use
you wipe
ground?
out a crop.
Can you use ground vanilla beans to make extract?
Yeah, I've seen people talking about the ground vanilla beans, and that's probably fine. You're gonna have a lot of stuff, so you're gonna have to fine sieve it at some point, let it settle, decant it off the top, or fine sieve it. I don't know why not. the one thing that makes me wary of the ground vanilla is it's going to be inferior beans because, like anything, you don't grind your best stuff, you grind your worst stuff. I don't know what they're grinding, how good
Yeah.
it was. I don't know what other stuff got in there. Do they add fillers? Just because you see vanilla specks and things, sometimes they're not even real specks. So that's probably a fine product, but I would either buy the extract, the paste, or the whole bean, and I would skip buying the vanilla beans ground, ideally. And then, yeah, and then the other thing is the extract is natural extract's great. I actually bought some of that at Costco a year or two ago. A pretty good sized bottle for like $10. I mean, I only use so much
Mm.
vanilla. I would use a few gallons in a restaurant through a year. I buy it by the quart, but
Here, they talk about growing it.
I see that.
It grows like a vine,
Yeah,
don't
it's a total
snort. Yep.
yeah.
And Tina said they died after she repotted
Yeah,
them
but even if you get them, you have to go through the whole fermentation process, which is
for the
a
bean. Yeah.
specialized activity, and I think you may need to have a bunch of them to
Mm.
possibly go through that and get them gathered up. I don't know. It'd be really cool to try it. I just not sure you'd get a product that was what you were hoping. But yeah, and then so the artificial vanilla is indistinguishable from natural vanilla, because now there may be more nuances in natural, but it's one of the few synthetics that is a dead ringer. Our body can't tell the difference.
Mm.
And so now it may be more stronger. You don't know how strong vanilla is in the artificial. Um, so and it's so cheap.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I really think it's perfectly fine to make a choice of when you use artificial.
Versus
And I would
the
say if
real.
you're putting it in a cake, you're putting it in things where it's not going to show the seeds. Um, you know, you're putting a little in eggnog or something. I wouldn't worry about it. If you have fresh and you want to pay the money for it, the natural, that's great. But if don't be ashamed to buy the artificial. Don't be ashamed to use artificial and then use some fresh extract or vanilla beans or like I said in the post, use it in your cake. Pound cake, you might want to see the vanilla beans, but a regular old, white chiffon cake, you don't even want to see the seeds. Use the extract. Then if you're making a buttercream or you're making a pastry cream filling, and you want it to be really nice, then maybe think about using it in your um, pastry cream or your icing. But
White picket fences.
the artificial has to say artificial. It'll
Yeah.
say artificial or synthetic right on it. It
Yeah.
legally has to do that. If it costs you a couple of dollars, it's artificial. If
Yeah.
it costs you between $10 and $20,
Should
it's
be the real
natural.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to tell you on it pretty clearly printed. So it's a total your call. And if your budget doesn't ever allow you to use fresh vanilla and go locate them, because a lot of towns aren't going to have them, you can get a little Spice Island jar. It's $7 or $8 for one. A lot of the nicer stores. Don't worry about it. If you're not interested in it, it's out of your
Yeah.
budget. It's one good place to save money and go spend it on a nicer cut of beef or a grass-fed something or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, we really got to wrap this up because it's 10:30 and
Yep.
we got to finish things up and I got to get ready for bed and
Yeah, vanilla
the
is in a
perfumes.
lot of perfumes at
Yes.
low levels.
Yeah.
Vanilla, on a physiological level, vanilla is in breast milk. It's in oak. So when you're aging bourbon, wine, anything in oak barrels,
Vanillins
the
are.
vanillins, which is the class
Yeah.
of the flavor.
Yeah.
But for humans, milk has it naturally too, actually, as
Yeah.
a low level. But so humans never get tired of the taste of vanilla, which is why vanilla ice cream is the #1 seller. It's based upon causing babies to begin suckling so they don't starve.
Mm.
So it's a very deep physiological thing. Almost anything else that we eat, after you eat a small amount or you eat a bunch of it, you're like, I'm done, I'm full, I don't like any more of it. For now, I'm okay with peanut butter or whatever else it is. Vanilla, you're almost never um, you just don't get tired of it. Butter has vanillins in it and a lot of other things. So that's why it's put in perfume, because it's a very, very deep physiological and psychological trigger. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Comfort.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, absolutely. We're done talking about vanilla, I think. So I'm going to say that's probably a wrap for
Yeah,
tonight.
clear vanilla. Yeah, you use so little that it doesn't darken your buttercreams much. And real buttercream should have butter and should be lightly yellowed. Even though you whip it out a whole lot, it'll be whitish. Um, Fake buttercream, which is still called buttercream sometimes, is made with Crisco or shortening, can be bright white, and then that's where you might see a little darkening if you have the darkening of the vanilla. So yeah.
Was that the last
We
vanilla
should talk about making buttercream sometime. Do a video because people that's another one people
have trouble with?
completely destroy it and have no idea what proper buttercream is.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Eventually, we gotta
yeah,
go.
yeah.
We gotta keep going on the food. Fun food discussions tonight. We went over like by a half hour.
Yep.
Um, so we
How many
will.
people do we still have in the room?
I don't know.
Last time we ended with more people. Yeah, we
More
ended with
people.
more people than we started late last
Yeah.
week. So
So yeah, we'll definitely continue the food discussions next weekend. Come join us. Congratulations to Suburban Hillbilly for the pasta contest there. And stay tuned in December because it's not necessarily always going to be the last week.
no, we mix it around.
We mix it up.
Might be
So
next week.
who knows? Yes, our next
And it's not
giveaway.
always pasta. It's every
It's
two
going to
or
be,
three, 4 times it's been pasta.
yeah. So the next giveaway we'll have to do probably before the holidays, but we'll
Maybe if I
see.
find some really cool, I tend to run into a lot of specialty foods. Although sometimes we send things that kind of come through Amazon so we can get direct
Yeah,
shipping.
that's easier.
But I don't know. Maybe I'll run across a good deal on some really good vanilla beans that I've kind of vetted and say I
Ooh,
like them. Maybe I'll send out a vanilla bean to somebody.
yeah,
I don't
right?
have any at home right
No.
now. There is a guy. There's a wholesaler in Michigan. He was buying them at $100 a pound and selling them at $300 a pound and bought
What?
as many. That was when it spiked. He watched the spike and he
Oh
bought
my
as many as he could, and he could have bought twice as much. He sells by the pound, but
God. Yeah.
I don't use a lot because I'm not in a
Instead of
restaurant
by the
right now.
bean. Yeah,
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 I would
yeah.
always buy them by the half pound or the pound in restaurants, but
Yeah.
it was expensive. It's a chef office item.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll find some interesting items that we'll shoot one
Yeah.
of those out next month. I don't
So
know.
pay attention. We'll be next week is next month, and we'll have to figure out which weekend we're going to do our next giveaway. And it's a random weekend. We don't tell anybody until we run out of time on some months. But we will definitely see you guys next week. Have a good night. Have a good week. Same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Part Time Permies. See you next time. Good night.